Okay, guys, let's take a look at today's action, and let's get right into this and take a look at this first point that happens here. Okay, good for starters. Let's go back. Let's break this puppy down a little bit and see what we've got. Okay, right off the bat, we have a serve that's pulling Chris out wide. And let's take a look at his partner, who's taking a long look. Number one, when you're in this position that Steve's in, your partner gets pulled right away. You need to start adjusting over a little bit, maybe not that far, but at the same time, keeping your focus on that net person, because your partner gets pulled out of position. That net person wants to get more aggressive, and you can't lose track of him. And so what we have is a long look. He's pulled way out of position, and ideally when you're this far out of the court, and the thing you want to get from this is Chris is moving out wide, Steve is not moving, so obviously the distance between the two of them is just getting larger and larger and larger, and it's hard to play defense with that big of a gap on the court. So ideally out of this position, I think we all realize that if you're in this position on the court that Chris is in, you'll want to throw up a lob and give yourself time to reclaim some decent position on the court. So let's see what happens. He doesn't get the ball high enough in the air, but he does manage to just dink it over there in front of Mark at his feet. Mark chooses a pretty good shot here, actually, with Chris being so far back, is why not just dink it over the net? But after the dink, right now, and you can see Randy's trying to get over there to cover, and watch what happens once the ball gets by Mark at the net. And that we've all been in this position where the ball gets by, and if we watch Mark at the net, he's got to get the heck out of there as quickly as he can and just turn and run around back over there. And Steve, after making this shot, you can see you're just leaning on top of the net. And from Randy's position here with his racket face being open, obviously the go-to shot would just be a lob over your head, which, after you make that shot that close to the net is to back up a little bit. Steve, give yourself a little bit of room to work with. And here comes the lob. And right now, I think Mark's just trying to get out of the way of what's coming. And it's a pretty simple put away for Chris at that point. Okay? So let's move on forward here. And let's take a look at what we have here with Randy serving. Okay. This is a really good play, especially when you consider, number one, Randy pulls him out wide and floats it out and somehow is able. And if you notice how the ball got pretty low on Mark at the net, and one of the things I would encourage all of you to do, if you're really being aggressive at the net, when the serve goes by you at the net, if you look at Mark here, what you'll want to do is just scooch forward a step, and you can see when you don't move at all, you can get caught flat-footed at the net, in which case that ball does drop down to your feet. And if you were moving up, we could get to that ball at a sooner point. But playing it from that low of a level, Chris is able to be just, on the spot here, takes that ball as it's sitting above the net and just rifles it by Mark. Okay? Let's move on forward here. Okay, again, not to pick on you, Steve, but you can see when that serve goes by you, you're just turning and looking. And ideally is to stay in that good ready position with your racket and hands in front of you. And again, your foremost responsibility is that net person, which is Mark in this case, and not looking behind you. You can see at this point, Steve, when you're looking behind you and watching your partner dealing with this ball, you really have lost track of not only Mark at the net, but also Randy, who just served. You don't know, is he staying back? Is he coming in on this? And so now you turn around at the last split second, and now you have that much less time to deal with that first shot that's on top of you here. And Here's a shot right here where Mark just played this ball. And this is where awareness, if Mark knew Randy was coming in, Randy actually, even though it's on, the ball's to the middle, and this is one of the deals with a righty and a lefty, your backhands are to the middle. But with Randy moving in off the baseline, he actually has more leverage on this shot with his weight going forward into the shot, rather than what you see yourself doing here is stretching out and getting your racket on the ball, and you're actually moving away from the net playing this ball. And so now, court's been left wide open. And I think Steve misses the lob here, but you guys are lucky you got out of that point, basically. Okay, let's move on forward here. Oh, dynamite stuff. And what makes this dynamite is, number one, the serve that's wide. That when you stretch somebody out wide, look how wide Steve is, almost into the fence there playing this shot. And even though Mark has slid over just subtly on this one, he still has an intent, knowing that, hey, his instincts tell him guy's been pulled wide. He's going to float this backhand return. And watch how much ground Mark actually covers across the net and really commits himself on this shot. And Chris, what you can do on this is, as Mark is moving, move with him. And what happens is you kind of stop Chris. Mark keeps moving out laterally, and you see where that ball's going. So when someone's moving out across the net like that, Chris, is just shadow their movement. So he's moving to his left. You would want to be moving to your right where his momentum is taking him. And that's pretty much where he went with that shot. So great wide serve, Randy, to stretch out your opponent. And Mark, that's a go ball for you, is just pick off those puppies. Let's move forward here. And here we go. Oh my God, what a shot. All right, let's back this up a little bit here. This is a very fine point here from everybody. Again, the serve's wide, but look at Mark's movement at the net. Is he has an interest in possibly intercepting this ball. The return is good and wide. Now, this is the important thing. I want you to look where Chris is at this point. He starts to point off on the service line. The ball crosses the net. He's still on the service line. The ball's bouncing. He's still on the service line. And so what's the point I'm trying to make? Obviously, at this point here, Chris, is just to work your way forward a little bit, get a little bit tighter to the net, because what happens is Randy plays this nice slice across the middle. And when you're not close enough to the net, you're not able to pick this off, because this ball comes right across the center of the net. And balls coming right over that center strap are prime balls to go after, as long as you're close enough to the net to reach that. And you can just see you're still in the kind of the back third of your service box. So that's going to be out of your reach. Randy does the right thing on that good low ball. He follows it in there. And on this one, my advice to Mark at the net here is, we know that Steve is playing that cross-court slice. It's pretty clear what he's playing. And what you can do on this, Mark, is, or anybody in this position, when someone's playing that low slice, is to not only move up to the net, but move more into the middle here. Because watch where this ball clears the net, right across the center. But if you're too far off the net, and granted that's pretty low over the net, look at that, that's just a few inches over the net. So that's a pretty tough ball to poach, actually. So great play, Steve. You had a good ball there. I would come in behind those puppies when you get the ball that low, because Randy's going to have to play from below the net. And playing below the net, Chris, you could be in a little bit tighter too, because he can't really hurt you with this, because it's tough to generate pace from that lower level. And I think he does play this back in your direction, and you can see it, the ball that you're playing is just subtly below the net. Fortunately for you, you play just a remarkable shot across in front of Mark, and that was one hell of an angle that you hit there. But how do you make good better? Even though it's a fantastic shot, with that ball being low over to Randy, just scoot yourself up closer to the net, and you can make life a lot easier on yourself by doing so. Okay, so let's move on here to the next point. Okay. So on this point, we have the serving team in an Australian formation. Serve goes up the center. It's clear what they're going to be doing. Randy covers over to his side of the court. Okay. Now, as he's playing this shot, when you've got the two net people opposite each other, he's got a couple of options here. One of which is to play this ball right in between the two of them. A second one would be a lob cross court into the ad corner, or the more conservative shot would be just back to Chris. Instead, what happens here is the ball you don't want to hit, and that is the sitter above the net in front of your partner, who can't really do anything much. You can't do much with that shot. But again, when the two net people are opposite each other, my favorite play, when you had this, was just rip a ball right between the two of them. It's a wide open play, actually. Okay, so let's move on to our next point here. And let's see what we have coming up. Okay, we touched on this a little bit today. This is an interesting point because whenever you're a net person, you could find yourself into this position. Mark's looking to poach, makes a mad dash, but the return is so wide, can't play it. And we brought this up, and I said, well, you got two basic options on this. One, hit a winner, or two, at this point, personally, what I would play on this thing is, because I want to give Mark time to get back into the point, is I would just play a lob, down this side of the court over Chris's head, because if anything, being a lefty, that lob that I would be hitting there would be over his backhand shoulder, and if it's hit well enough, he's just going to be switching on it, which would give us plenty of time to get back into the point. The last thing you want to do is to play a ball, basic ball just back into the court, because it really doesn't leave you any time to get from one sideline to the next. Point pretty much over on that. Okay? We're going to stop right there, and I'm going to do a second installment here. I usually keep my clips to a certain amount of time, so that's it for this first installment.